Welcome to the ASQ Podcast, where we explore the essential principles that shape life, leadership, and culture. I'm your host, Jessie Ferreira, and today we're diving into a topic that lies at the heart of all meaningful leadership and personal development, the importance of empowering others. Stay tuned. How are you today?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I don't know if I'm excellent, but I wasn't expecting you to say excellent.
I am. Actually, I'm doing pretty good.
I'm glad.
Yeah,
well, you said you had a headache a little while ago.
Well,
so.
I did. But, once you drink some water, right, typically...
You're dehydrated.
I was a little dehydrated, considering in Florida...
As I drink my wine.
Yeah, considering in Florida, it's been, 110 degrees and what have you, so...
Oh, my God. And what about the rain today?
Yeah. So, but yeah, no,
well,
I'm
good. I'm glad you're doing excellent.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me happy.
Good. I'm glad.
I'm going to feed off that energy because I'm very excited about, I don't know why I do, but I'm very excited about this episode.
Yeah.
We alluded to this the last episode because they kind of, I don't know if they went hand in hand, but we talked about it in our last episode.
Yeah, correct.
On spirituality in the workplace. But today we're talking about empowering others, empowerment and empowering others and the importance of it.
Yep.
So let's dive in.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So of course I have a quote.
Ah, nice.
All right. Ready? This is a quote by David. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right. Niven, or I think it's Niven. He says, true leadership strengthens the followers. It is a process of teaching, setting an example, and empowering others. If you seek to lead, your ability will ultimately be measured in the successes of those around you. I found that interesting because even though that's a true statement, I don't think a lot of people feel that way.
Well, it's like I always say it, right? Like leadership is common knowledge, but not common practice.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of variables that goes into the reasons why it's not common practice.
Yeah.
Right. So and this is probably part of the reasons why.
Yeah. So do you want to, talk to me about why you think that is?
Well,
just briefly, because we're going to touch more on it later.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Well, briefly is because ego. There is no, it's when you think and when you feel, because power is a very important thing to understand.
We've done a couple of episodes about power in and of itself.
No, absolutely. Power is a very important thing to understand, because from the standpoint of how you use it, for what reason, for what purpose, right? And that's when it becomes type of an ego thing, right? Is it for the desire for yourself, right? For self-aggrandizement, for getting what you need and all this stuff that we have experienced in the history of humanity, right? Those things that are for just either for an individual or for a group, right? So when you think about things like that, it's the dichotomy of power, right? And primarily the main issue when it comes to that is whether or not we are willing to reframe, our needs, our wants, and our desires without having to take away from someone or from a group or from things like that. So that's why it's interesting, because it boils down to idea of ego, right?
Yeah.
Joseph Campbell, in one of these things one of the many lectures that I've heard, he has this line that says, the ego that is an it is not the same ego that is a thou. So an it is a thing. It's an object.
Right.
It's something to use and discard, right? For whatever purpose or whatever thing you want. A thou, right? It's an object of reverence. Something to take care of, to mold, to give it its due, its proper due. It's a certain level of reverence and respect, right?
So say the quote one more time.
An ego that is an it, it's not the same ego that is a thou.
Okay, so now that you explain, now.
So when it comes to this topic of empowerment, right, the problem is an ego problem, right? Because most of the times, either in a family, in a job, right? We looking at particularly I've worked with young people most of my life, right? And we want them to do what we tell them to do because it's good for them, right? Quote unquote,
Right.
right? And in work, it's like I pay you so that you could do a function that I need done for me,
right,
or for whatever my outcome might be, right? And we see that, and we see the way it's treated, you know. Versus the Dow. So when it comes to those stuff, it's the same thing like when you're listening at the news, right? 3,000 people got killed. Okay. 3,000 people, random people, right? On the next episode, or the next story that we have, there's those peoples they become things.
Yeah.
They become irrelevant. There's no, there's no like story behind those people unless they belong to a certain type of group, or right. But so it's seeing those different things. It's that's the biggest issue. Our biggest issue is the ego, and how we look at people, and whether or not we want to let go of that power, right? Or a perceived notion of power.
Right. Why do you think it's so difficult for people to let go of that power? I know you're going to come back with something really simple, but it's not simple. It's not a simple process, that obviously, because if it was simple and people could see the benefits of it, then they would do it, right?
No.
More easier.
I understand.
Because there's benefits to empowering other people and the idea and the concept of empowerment, right? So why do you think that's so difficult?
I'm getting this shirt done, right? Because I've been having this line all the time, and I got to get it done before Mike takes it.
Oh, Mike who? Just so he knows?
Mike Sancho. He knows what's up. He knows what's up. So, we're sophisticated animals. And I say that in the way in which we still believe, and we still have that mentality, that animal mentality, right? Of taking things by force, fear of losing things, right? We are part of the animal kingdom. We just happen to be more sophisticated, right? In the way that we think, and the way that we analyze, and the way that we progress. But we are animals nonetheless. Some of us are more humanistic than others, right? And that was the whole purpose of religions, right? The religion purposes, it wasn't just for reverence, but it was to transform an individual from an animal to a human being, right? And a human being is something different, We are capable of feeling thought, of reverence, of protection and caring, right? The ethics of religions, right? That idea of how you treat a peer, or how you treat somebody else, which is something that we have struggled to do, right? So the simple answer is that, we're still animals,
Okay.
And we still have those drives that animals have, right? For control,
self-preservation,
for all those things. And we haven't realized, and this is the thing that I feel, and not so much that I feel, but I mean, if you look at Darwinism primarily, right? A lot of people always look at it from the standpoint of the strongest, right? But they seldom, if you read it, there's this aspect of cooperation in nature as well, and we don't see that. We don't acknowledge this as much, because it's, and this is what it goes down to, is shifting our mind, right, from the point of view of that self-preservation to a cooperation, right? And we haven't truly, we've done it. We've come a long way. We're not savages. We're not the wars and the way that we treat each other. It's changed a lot. It has improved, right? But the reason regarding this topic, the main reason is that we have to be able to understand that the world is more a cooperative endeavor than it is this self-preservation.
I know the answer to this, so I'm being, I guess, rhetorical, but it's just interesting to me that if there are benefits to empowering others and relinquishing control so to speak, and that would foster a more productive environment, family environment, leadership styles, etc. It's just interesting to me how resistant and how much we want to tread against or go against the water, or what do you call that? The stream, or the
stream. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you know what I mean? It's just an interesting philosophical perspective for me, because I find that to be interesting. Like, you want to do this? Okay, here you go. I don't have a problem here. Let me teach you how to do it. Like, I delegate things. I don't delegate like that, but I ask people, would you like to take over doing this? Or would you like to be responsible for this? And oftentimes they're like, oh, I don't know. Are you going to teach me how to do it? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And it's, for me, it's less burden, less stuff, you know, and then immediately the reaction that I get from those individuals is almost like this gratitude. They're like, wow, you trust me to do this. And that's empowering them and aiding their growth. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you are the exception and not the rule. Right. So I get what you're saying, that there is a certain aspect that is really good about empowering others. Right. But on the flip side of that, right, there's so many nuances to the reasons why people don't empower others. Right. I'll give you an example. Optics, right? The perception that you want to put out into the world, the perception of how you want something to look like, right? So if people don't do it in that particular way, then that sense of optics and it gets diminished, right? I saw it happen a lot in youth development, things that they wouldn't allow the kids to do something because it will make an organization not look so good. You know, or if someone didn't do it. So there's a lot of nuances as to the reasons why they don't do that. You know, I grew up in my style of leadership was like that. It was about empowering you to make your decisions, to think for yourself, to figure out things, but giving you the leadway, but also being able to give you feedback as to how do you do it differently, right? Because it was always about learning and teaching and growing. Right. So you have that aspect of optics. You also have the optics of fear. Right. If I empower somebody else, then I'm in essence working myself out of a job.
I actually think, just to touch on that you've actually talked about that in the past about, I don't remember how it goes, but not outdoing the master or something like that.
Yeah, rule number one of Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power is, never outshine the master.
Exactly, which is what you're alluding to with what you're saying. It's interesting.
Yeah. So when you start looking at all those things, there are a lot of nuances when it comes to the delegation of power from a person that have it towards the people that do not, right? There's also the willingness to receive it too, from your case, because not everybody receive it, right? And that's another reason why people don't want to delegate and share power, because, some of us have been let down by other people when we delegate and when we entrust them, right?
True.
So there's a lot of those nuances when it comes to human interactions and human things that happen that makes people, whoa, wait a minute, right? But also at the same token, I think that if you look at the law of averages, right, and you look at the fact that if you have 10 situations in which you empower people, right, you will have, basically you will have 3 people that will lay you down, 4 people that will do their job but they won't excel, right, and then you have 3 people that excel. Right. So when you look at the law of averages, the fear of delegation, right, and empowering others for an adverse consequence or an adverse result is maybe 30-20%, right? But we don't see it like that, right? So I
think they see it as more burdensome. Like, I just don't want to deal with that.
I don't want to
consequence
deal with it.
Or whatever consequence.
I don't want to take
the
chance,
right? But
right? Yeah.
What we're saying here, what you're saying from what I'm hearing, is that a lot of the time it ends up being successful,
of course,
and beneficial.
And and the thing, and again, giving people the benefit of the doubt as to why it's hard to empower, right? It's because those negative fears, those negative what do you call it? Those negative things that we experience when people let us down, they're so much stronger and so much more.
Those feelings you're saying?
Yeah, those
emotions,
feelings. They're so much more powerful.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so much, because those are the ones that you're ruminating again at night. Those are the ones that get you upset. I'm like, fuck. Those are the ones that get you upset. But you very seldom look at the people that have excelled. You don't look at those.
Not really.
You really look at the negatives.
That's our tendency. That's what we do as human beings.
It is our animal reaction to stay away from pain.
Sophisticated animals. But yeah, okay.
That's what we are.
Okay, I get it. No, that makes sense. It's interesting because I know that we both have lots of stories that we could share about empowering other people and being empowered and not being empowered, et cetera. But you touched on a couple of things that I was going to talk about.
Yep.
First, just to put the definition of what empowering others means. Basically, it's just giving them the tools, confidence, and the opportunities to take control of their lives, make decisions, and pursue their goals. So this is so relatable to, like we were talking about earlier with young adults, families, parents, work, culture, leadership, etc. And so some of the elements you have already touched on were trust, that you have to be able to trust that they're going to do the job, right?
Yep.
But you have to be able to provide support so that they can get it done. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of communication, understanding, and allowing people to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't know if I can do that. Are you going to be there to support me? I had that recently happen to me, okay, I don't have a problem, but are you going to be available to me, to help me? And I'm like, absolutely, no problem. And I was happy to give this thing up because I just was
ready to move on.
Yep. And giving them the resources that they need or they require in order, and that resource could be just an opportunity for them to vent and ask for help, and then not being responding in a positive manner when they do need help, right?
Yep.
And then also encouraging them, which you said every single one of those things in your little discussion here. So I thought those were important. So.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to understanding yourself. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, in the past, when I haven't arrived at this thing without confronting the fears of betrayal, that being let down, right? Yeah. Being let down by people that you put a lot of effort on, right? And vice versa. I'm not going to tell you, sit here, that it's not frustrating sometimes when you go over something and try to empower someone, right? And then they're just not getting it, right? Sometimes it gets frustrating, particularly when it comes to your family members or your children, right? I understand also the fact that you want your kids to be successful, right? And you want them also to avoid the mistakes that you have, but also consequently as a result of that, you're robbing them of being who they truly are, right? So it is a very nuanced and challenging thing.
It's an intricate dance.
It is, because you have to be able to be detached from the outcome, right? You have to be able to be detached to the outcome and then find a deeper identity within yourself, right, that goes beyond letting go. So because the essence of, if I have this, right, and this is who I am, and then I'm sharing of giving that away, what have I become? Right?
It's almost like you're losing your identity, and there's a fear.
So then
there's a fear.
Again, so then power, when that's what happens.
Yeah.
Right? The identity, and particularly when you have a title.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you are this person, when they give you a certain status in the group, in the community, right? And you begin to share that stuff now, right? Now, it sounds kind of like a lot of people say, well, that sounds like communism, right? No, I'm not talking about equality. I'm not talking about anything like that, right? I'm talking about the fact of empowering is getting someone to really maximize all their potential, right?
Right. Tapping into that potential.
Potentials
that they don't know that they have, yeah.
And maximize it, right, for the benefit of the whole,
Correct.
Which is more cooperative than you do what I tell you, which is the traditional way of us thinking about, number one, any type of leadership, right? Any type of leadership, which is the transactional way of being, right, with someone, you know. So, and then you see it in families, you see it at work, you see it in society and the culture as a whole, right? How that idea of closeness, right? Where directly does it lead us, right? Where does it lead us as a group?
Yeah,
you know?
I've had interactions with people who have had when we're talking about family, where they've been, teenagers, young adults. They want to experience being empowered. They don't know maybe what the word is for that or whatever, but they want to do things.
I'm gonna let you go, but this is the thing, right? This is the thing that always baffles me, and it's funny to me, right? Because teenagers in particular, right, in that particular group, is a group that is looking for identity, right? In order for you to find your identity, there's a certain level of freedom that's required, right? A certain level of exploration that's required, right? Now, I'm not advocating, just go, right? But as people though who worked or having kids, right, in that age, there's parameters that have to be set in which they get to explore, right? And then your job in that field or in that family is to be able to provide guidance, right? But creating those parameters, because they need that freedom, right? But most people don't know that. So I wanted to say that because we tend to overlook the different needs in those stages of our lives, right? And that's why there's so much conflict with teenagers and parents. That idea of control. I mean, that controlling an overstructure works for younger kids to an extent, right? It doesn't work for young adults because they want to experience, right? So
I was just giving the story about how I was explaining to somebody, a student, and there's regulations that we have to follow, in the state. I'm not sure if this is, I can't remember how far beyond this rule applies, but you're not allowed to speak to anybody but the student.
Correct.
Right?
FERPA.
And mom calls. And it was just a really interesting conversation because she was trying to get answers to questions that were not general questions that I could answer. She's not asking about a program. She's asking about her son. We're not even allowed to confirm that her son goes to the school, even if she's telling me that. Yeah. Anyway, long and short is that we had this, she was like, I don't feel like you're answering my questions.
Legally, you're not bound.
Right. And I said, well, the truth of the matter is, while we've been talking, I've been looking to see if there's anything on file for me to be able to speak to you about your son. And she said, my son is only, he's dual enrolled. And so he's not of legal age. So you have to speak to me. So it kind of got a little tenuous, and we talked, and I calmed her down and whatever. And I explained to her that I can't even confirm that he's a student here and whatever. And she's like, that's ridiculous. He can't do anything on his own. I have to do it for him. And I thought, that's interesting.
Well, yeah.
So the student calls me. Sounds perfectly like normal. I didn't even realize. I wouldn't have known he was 16, and I would have known that anyways on the phone. And, he gives me pertinent information that I need to be able to confirm his identity. And we start to talk, and he's like, my mom just doesn't let me make decisions for myself. And I feel like I'm going to lose it. Those were his words. Yep. And I was like, how many young adults go through that experience where they have helicopter moms and dads or parents or family members who want to impose their thought processes and beliefs and the things that have worked categorically, like 100% worked for them, and now they want to impose it because. And the thing is, there's both sides of it. But it's good, bad, because they want what's best for this individual.
It's well intentioned.
It is.
It is well intentioned.
But there is a destructive element to that.
Yes.
Because this kid does not have, or kids in general who are experiencing this, or people in general, don't. they're not given the opportunity to create an identity.
Yes.
They don't know what they like. They don't know what they want. They don't know what. And then there's the polar opposite, because then you have the ones that are like,
feral.
do whatever you want.
Yeah. So and that's a very good example.
Feral.
Yeah,
that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's an excellent example, right?
I'm just saying, that really resonated with me, because I felt really bad for this kid. And I know that there are,
well, yes. People talk about generationals and this and that and the other, right? And it really boils down, I think, in my opinion, really, this is why we focus on life and individuals, right? And and how those individuals affect different aspects of life. And the reality is that, number one, I don't want to bash the parents, right? Because again, that doesn't work.
And that's not what I'm saying.
No. But I understand, because there are a lot of stuff out there that really bashes the parents. Again, they're good intentions, right?
Well intentioned,
but the road to perdition is labeled good intentions,
of
right?
Course.
So and as a young adult, right? Again, it's being able to for a family member is to be able to find that balance with guidance, because again, as a young person, it's fearful to go and do something new, right?
Yeah,
and it's to be able to talk to that child about, hey, I know you're gonna be feeling nervous, but here's what you're gonna do: you ask this question, right? You could be honest and guide them through that, right? I know when I was growing up, I always had that struggle with my mother, right? My mother wanted to be that person that controls, right? But I didn't want that control. So there was a lot of friction, right? And one moment, and there was a time in which she said, okay, I have to let you go, right? Because I had to put up a fight. But it doesn't have to be as frictional, right? Now in work, when you go to work, it's the same thing. Like, I've seen individuals say, you have to do it this way, right?
Yep.
This is how I want you to do it.
Totally experienced that.
Right. And the thing is that also takes away. Think about the reasons why most people quit their jobs. Most people think that people quit their jobs because of money.
No.
They don't.
No.
It's because of culture.
Yep.
Right? It's because of culture. It's the culture that makes people quit. Right? If people have what they want, right? And it's a culture in which they feel supported, in which they feel as if they could share, and they're empowered to make decisions within the frameworks of what they do, people are not going to leave that environment.
No, because are they going to get that somewhere else?
Exactly.
Probably not.
Right? Unless they're going to want to go and venture into their own business and things of that nature, right? But we've created an environment because of this, because the lack of empowerment, in which people are really dissatisfied at their jobs.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is no sense of, I'm just going there to just do a job. I'm just going to go home and whatever.
Yeah.
Right? There's no engagement from a deep level of purpose and meaning, right? Because in the scope of what happens is I just need you to do your job. And traditionally, this is what we have a lot of us experienced, right? So what you're doing to your business, right, from a leadership standpoint, is you're robbing your business of potential ways of growth, right?
Yep.
And that's the thing that not empowering others does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And again, I'm not saying that any business, right? Any endeavor needs structure, right? Everything needs structure, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's what we're talking about.
And that's not what I'm referring to, because anything needs to be within the framework of a structure.
But there's latitude in that framework.
Precisely.
To do and empower other people.
Precisely.
To build trust, to help individuals grow, to tap into their potential.
Yes.
Help them develop that potential.
Yeah. And consequently, right, it maximizes what that business, right, does.
Because that's what it's based on. And what does that do for the employees? They're out there talking about it.
Yes.
They want to be there. They want to talk about the business. They want to market it on their own time. That's what they do.
And then, this is one of the things, like I do public speaking. It's one of the things that we do here, right? But I don't like motivational speaking or inspirational, like the rah stuff. You get pumped up, right? It's like, you shouldn't have to do that at work, in my opinion, right? Because when you're dealing with the essence of people, right, and you know how to tap into that, right, You don't need to have these rah-rah-rahs, right? Which is like, Napoleon Hill used to make fun of this stuff. It's like you go to church on Sunday and you get all wild up, and then Monday comes around and you're like, blah, 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 blah. Right? So, because when you're leading the proper way, right, you are able to, the actions, how you interact with your staff, the empowerment that you give to them, the flexibility and the latitude to make decisions, right, and then to be able to do those type of things, it becomes better, right? And you're creating an environment that consequently will yield better results.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that we're talking about. And I think for the people that are like, I don't trust people, they're not going to do my job right. I've given projects away to people and I think that's a moment for self-reflection.
Yeah. And as a leader, guess what's happening? Guess what happens as a leader, right? If you can't trust any other people around you.
A lot of things happen.
You become a slave.
I was going to say, you end up doing everything.
And
then, I mean, you get burnt out. You're angry.
You lose your passion for what you're doing.
Exactly. There's a frustration. You take that shit home. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen,
Leadership it's challenging in the sense because traditionally we think that the leader is the end all be all of everything. Right? Yeah. That's what we think, You're the savior, you're this or that and the other, right? You're the one that's going to swoop in and save the day and then move forward, right? True leadership, in the essence, in the way that I experienced it and learned it from one of the best people ever, which is Ken Mullen, right? He is the one that showed me what a true leader is, which is, and Ken was challenged. He challenged me. He challenged Danny. He challenged George, and Dion. He challenged us. He wasn't just like, friendly. He challenged us in tough ways. We were really challenged as young people. I mean, like 14, 15, 16-year-old boys. We were challenged and stretched in many ways. But we had a job, and the job was to make sure that every other kid in that group understood their role and did it. And then you didn't beat them up, right? You empower them. You empower your troop leaders and all that stuff to be able to do that. And that's something that I always resonated with me because he taught us, right, for us to teach the other ones. And consequently like that. And that's always how I've personally managed, right? When I manage people is I'm going to show you so you could go and show everybody, because then it's not that I was just sitting back not doing anything. Then it gave me flexibility to do other things and to be more creative.
Well, it allows you to be the visionary. It allows you to do the things that you're supposed to be doing to maximize the situation that you're in your family, in your work environment, in your business,
I remember this meeting and this is a cool guy, Mr. Moody from Stewart Middle School. We were having a meeting with one of our leaders there, Matt Burgos. Hello, Matt. How are you? And Mr. Moody we were having a meeting, and Matt's leading the meeting, and he's the leader there. Mr. Moody looks at me and he says, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "You're not needed." And I'm like, okay. And and a lot of the times, right, again, going back to the ego thing. And again, I got an ego too. I'm not going to deny that. There's certain things that I'm egotistical about, right? And there's certain things that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's certain things that I have that, that thing. And a lot of, so, and I recognize certain things in which I do have to step back, right? Because I have to be self-aware of that, right? But I was happy that he said that to me. Right, it was kind of like one of those.
That doesn't happen often.
No. It wasn't. It was some of the things that I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because he knew that what I wanted was for Matt to realize how good he was, and that I wasn't needed. Right. And that's the beautiful thing about when you are in the business of developing people, right? Because I get it from a business standpoint. A person that owns a business, right? They want to make money. That's their main objective. I want to make money, right? So now the segue is going into how that affects culture, right?
Yep.
Because if that's your only objective, if optics, right? If this perception of how you are an elite in in business or in whatever field that you're in, if that is what the perception that you want, right?
Mm-hmm. And I would say that was what I was trying to say earlier, is that you have to be, there's a level of awareness, a self-awareness, emotional intelligence that is involved in this whole process. And I think that's why I love emotional intelligence so much, is because, and that's why I made it the focus of my research, is because if we had increased emotional intelligence, how much more cooperative would we be? Yeah. You know what I mean? And not feral, as you so eloquently put it. I mean, and how much, just the cooperative part, how much better would we get along if we were more self-aware, instead of, we're driving down the road and somebody's cutting you off because they're not paying attention. And then they're people are angry. Just all this different stuff. And it's all about emotional intelligence.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not advocating not seeking power, right? We all want power. We all want a more autonomy. We all want those things, right? It's not the being pious, right? That's not the point that what we're trying to make, right? It's not about that, because you want things. You want to explore who you are.
Power isn't a bad thing,
and it isn't.
Not a bad thing.
It's the application
it's how you use
of,
it,
right?
Exactly,
right. So, and your power as a person, right? It's temporary.
Yeah.
Right. And and a lot of the times, like, I sound harsh. Like, sometimes I listen to myself talking and say, man, you're an asshole. Right. Because it's like, no comment, right?
I'm just kidding.
Right? Because the reality is, like, most people are never taught, hey, listen, man, it's like, you're out of line. It's like, and most people are good people. I do believe that most people are good people.
Yeah.
I do believe that. Right. But I think that we have been delusionally unaware of why we do the things that we do, right? Because of the lack of self-awareness. And not so much the lack of self-awareness, but also the conditioning of where it comes from.
I was going to say, it's also a societal thing. I think it's cultural. It's a generational thing too, so
we have
a lot to do with it.
We have this idea, right, of what a leader looks like, or what a person in power looks like, a person that could just, like a Michael Corleone, right? It's like, you wag your finger and people go and swim with the fishes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, really.
Yeah, but again, and this is the point, right? Because this is the ideas of what leaders that we have, that we look like, right? Is they don't see how those leaders died. Michael Corleone died alone.
Yeah,
right.
That is
alone
true.
And broken.
Broken. Yes.
And broken.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, those are the things that are very interesting, right? I mean, I think of another leader that I think about, and I like this guy, is Eisenhower, right? And Eisenhower really was a warrior, if you really think about it. He wasn't a warrior, and he was so much different than Patton. Patton was a jerk. Right. And then people, historically speaking, I'm not making it up, but if you look it up, it's like a lot of people did not like Patton because of the way that he treated other people. But Patton was, movies about him and all that stuff. But Eisenhower was more a dynamic, right? He was more self-aware in how he treated his commanding officers, right? How he trusted, he was more organized and empowered them to make decisions based on the plan. Right. And when he came into office, right, he was more culturally aware of what was happening in Washington. He said it. He's like, for the nation to progress, we have to be aware of this military industrial complex. Right. So this is an individual who was in a real position of power, right, that was aware of himself, but also aware of what was happening and made it known, right, that the real power was in that. That right there was going to be our demise, right? And again, but that's power, right? And he was a person of power, letting us know what are we going to use this power for and how, and warning us about it. And consequently, it hasn't really been that good if you really think about it. And he was foreshadowing some of the things that he saw from a perspective of power, right? And he was a person that, if you listen to a lot of his stuff, it's like he was a really well-liked and respected general, really well-liked and respected, and in World War II, the plan, everything, So when you start looking at how how we need to be able to be aware of why do we want it? Why do we want power, right? And the beauty of seeing somebody grow. Personally, that's what I live for. I love seeing people grow.
Well, yeah, that's what we do. That's our business. That's what we invest in people.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we think is important. I think that there's a few things that I would take away from this whole thing, and that's just the key to being able to empower other people is to be self-reflective and be self-aware and understand our dark side. And we've talked about this. We've had, multiple conversations about understanding the shadow side of ourselves and being willing to be vulnerable and expose ourselves to help other people grow and develop, because people want that. People want to grow. They want to be better. They want to, I didn't know I could do that. They want that. And I think that those are key components in for individuals, for leadership, and for culture. Yeah. I think those are important things. Yeah. And I think that you can take baby steps. You don't have to do everything all at once.
Listen, I was telling one of my groups this week, right, that everybody always thinks that change is this dramatic, boom, fireworks at this big
not at all.
It's whispers. It's
very
like
little
realizations and intuitions, a very quiet voice that comes in the back of your mind and in your soul, right? It's very quiet if you're listening to it, right? And one of the things that I ask people is you could do that starting by where you are, right? You could create structures within yourself in which you're allowing people to explore and expand, right? Excuse me. To explore and expand and learn and grow, right? To help them, to guide people. Like you could be that lighthouse that tells people, hey, listen, stay clear of this area, but allow them the opportunity to find their own way, right? And culturally, as we're allowing people to do that in the settings that we're doing, either in our homes, in our business, right? The culture as a whole will begin to change.
Yeah.
And transform, because when people start feeling good about who they are, right? A person that feels good about themselves, right? And a person that is joyful and content with itself, they don't hurt others.
Yep.
They don't take advantage of others.
No. That isn't their first motivation.
It's not, right?
No.
They could strive.
I would think, I definitely think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that if we were more aware of ourselves and our surroundings, then we would be able to pick up on those whispers that you're talking about and celebrate those successes and think about the domino effect that has.
Yeah. And celebrate the little successes of others.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
The successes of the entire, process. I mean, and the outcomes of it and the potential that's there to maximize on. Thank you for tuning into this episode. If you're ready for meaningful personal growth and transforming your business or organization, visit our website at ASQEmpowermentServices.com for more information. Stay tuned for more exciting topics.